So the next thing is, once you have your preparation, you're headed to the hunt. You're gonna have to be able to spot the elk, and hopefully be able to spot the elk during your prepping if you can physically go out and see it as well. So some important things on that are going to be the very first 30 minutes of light and the last 30 minutes of light is where you're going to get most of the movement of all animals. That seems to be the prime time, especially this earlier season stuff. Obviously, once you get later in the year towards that, second, third, fourth season stuff, they are moving a lot more throughout the day because it's a lot cooler. But especially in archery, muzzleloader, and the early rifle hunting, you are not going to have a ton of movement with as hot as it is. So that first 30 minutes and last 30 minutes is going to be a crucial time, and you're going to have to make sure you are in the right place for that time to, be successful. And absolutely, you have to hunt until dark, and you have to hike in the dark in order for, the early season stuff to be, give yourself the most chance to be successful. Don't be like, oh, I've been out here all day, I'm just going to hike out now. And then the best time of the night, you're back down at the truck or cooking dinner or whatever.
But that goes back to the preparation piece. If you're scouting somewhere in the middle of the day, there may be elk all around you, but you're not going to see them because they're not moving. They're bedded down in the trees. And so if you're serious about scouting, you really want to see elk. What he's talking about is money. You have to be there, especially when it's 95 degrees, for the 30 minutes before and the 30 minutes after sunrise, 30 minutes before sunset, because that's the only time you'll see them. And what's funny is, like, when I go out and ride razors and dirt bikes and stuff around here, we're in the best elk hunting, arguably the best elk hunting country in the world, or country as in, like, there's a lot of elk here. And you won't ever see anything. Like, you won't see bear, you won't even see deer, but you will in town, but not out there. But as soon as it's 30 minutes before dark and you're driving out, you see everything. And so just make sure you're doing that, or you're going to say that a spot is not a good place for you to hunt when you're scouting it. And really, there are a lot of elk there. You're just there at the wrong time.
Yeah. And I've kind of ran through some of my pictures just looking at, like, when statistically I've had my most success, and it's the first 2 hours and the last 2 hours of, hunting light. That seems to be where the most activity is, whether I'm taking pictures or actual, videos of the kill shots, whatever it is. When I look back on that for the last 5-6 years, it is the last and the first 2 hours that I seem to have the most success in. And then obviously the 30 minutes is where, there's that most movement. And that seems to be when I'm just scouting and looking where I'm having the most success there.
But see, dude, the scouting, a lot of people, if you can go to where you're going to hunt, a lot of people can't. But if you can, a lot of people don't take it that seriously because it's like, I'm not going to shoot an elk. Who cares?
Exactly. They'll drive out there at 8 in the morning and they're like, oh, I'm going to spend the day out there and check it out. And it's like, well, you're not going to see anything.
Yeah. Or 10 in the morning, get there at noon and drink some beers and then come home. And it's like, there could have been a ton of elk around you, but you weren't there at the right time, you know?
Have no clue, especially with the way the sun is right now. You got to be out there, 5:30 in the morning. So you got to be out there at that time. So it's hard, but you got to put it, if you really want that success, you got to put in that extra effort and, be ready for that. Another, few crucial points on spotting that first elk. These are things that I use to help me find them still to this day. Is, find high ground. So even in your scouting and your preparation, look for, little knolls or little peaks that you can get to, hike to, or even drive to, or whatever type of hunting you're doing. Get to those lookouts, and those are the places you want to mark under GPS, and plan to be there at first light or last light. That way you have a great viewing point, and then if you see something, you can make a stalk from there. But if you can't see them, you can't make a move on them. So get to that high point, use that as your viewing, and then attack from there. Obviously, when you're looking, you want to look for large tan spots. You're going to probably look at a bunch of dirt spots and different trees and stuff like that. But if it looks anything like an elk, I highly recommend looking, because you never know when it is actually going to be one. They look a lot like a lot of things. So
when you're looking, they look like everything, and it's
it's not even close. And then you see an elk and you're like, oh, that's
Yeah.
what they look like. That's
Yeah.
ridiculous, what I was looking at earlier. But that's what you have to do in order to find it, because you never know where they're going to be. And that's where it's especially important to be, looking under trees and in the shade and different colors, because, if they're in the shade, they're going to be a different color tan. If they're, out in the sunshine, they're going to be really bright tan. So it's super hard to figure that out. So kind of like train your eye looking for tan spots, and then just when you're glassing, find every tan spot you can and make sure it's not an elk. Another thing that I've learned, I picked this up from my dad, was look for shiny objects. If the sun's kind of beating off a shiny object, it very well could be an antler. Especially we do a lot of hunting in low sagebrush, and they'll lay down in that sagebrush and all you can see is an antler tip kind of like moving through the sagebrush when they're laying down or anything like that. And you'll just catch a little glimpse of shimmer. And that's one thing you can do in the middle of the day and sometimes see them, is you'll just catch an antler shimmering. But, it's also something you can do in that first couple hours and last couple hours for sure. Look for antlers. Look in the trees. They're going to be coming out of trees, kind of pick the trees apart. Another thing is your hearing. If you have really hard hearing or anything like that, they have great, they're earplugs that they can like make the sound better. But elk hunting, that's one of the best things about it, is they give it away. They bugle. And
they bugle, and even walking through, they're loud. They're heavy animals. They're like horses walking. You can normally, if they're close to you, you can hear them.
Yep, they crash and clang and bang. And obviously, if you're really in the area, you can smell them too. Use all your senses. But that's a good point. You can definitely hear them, and the bugling for sure. Keep an ear out for that. And even this time of the year, you'll catch a bugling in the middle of the day every once in a while and stuff. So definitely always have your ears on. And
we heard a cow call a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
We heard a cow call.
Nice.
But one thing that I want to say that he probably hasn't experienced because he grew up doing this is it takes practice to spot an elk. Like, you get with some good hunters and they can pick out an elk on a hillside in 5 seconds. And, it's like the classic, like, where? I don't see it.
Yep.
It's right there. Where? I can't see it. And so the thing is like, my buddy is really, really good at spotting elk, way better than me. And one of the things that I've tried doing is, instead of being like, oh yeah, there's elk over there, finding them with your own eyes. And so by the end of the season before, I got considerably better at spotting elk. And now I would consider I'm good at it. I'm not great at it like some people that have been doing it for way more years than I am, but it's something that you kind of have to learn. So when you're with people, if you get the chance to be with people that are good hunters, when they see an elk, put your binos up and train your eye to be able to see them as well.
Yeah. And it might be silly, but obviously there's a lot of elk that are down like close to town in the hay fields and on the private property and all that. But if you really haven't seen a lot of elk, go out and look at them. Not only will it be just a cool experience for you to actually finally see the elk and everything, but it gives you what they look like when you're looking through your binoculars. Pull your spot and scope out, look and see what they look like that way. Train yourself of what they actually look like. And, that's in a hayfield, it's a bad environment place for them to, train yourself to see them. But it can also, give you more of that color scheme, with different lighting and stuff like that. So as silly as it might be, just driving by and being like, oh, there's elk, maybe stop and use your optics and see what it looks like. And that'll just help yourself for sure.